In part 1, I looked at some of the earliest adventures in smartphone filmmaking, covering films that have remained relatively undiscovered. In part 2, I looked at films made by established directors, including an Oscar-winning director who wasn't content with one go at it and made 2 films on iPhones. In part 3, I will tell you about some more plucky smartphone filmmakers giving it a go and making great feature-length movies on smartphones.
So here's the sequence. He's trying to get in. He turns, he shouts, "This is all your fault, Horace." Then he'll turn back, looking in there, trying to get it, and you'll shout, "Darren," and you'll shoot him. Yep.
Charmin follows the found footage documentary style that became popular in horror movies after the success of the Blair Witch Project. However, in that now 20 years old film, it can be a little absurd when 16mm cameras are kept rolling even in the direst of situations. But with smartphones, that all changes. In Charmin, there's less to question there because, as mentioned before, filming and snapping photos of our daily lives is unremarkably normal now. So what we have here is a more natural and far less strained playing out of the narrative. And when things feel more normal and therefore real, they often feel more scary. Hence the success of a film such as Paranormal Activity, which plays off its lo-fi setup. It's more chilling because we are lured into suspending our disbelief when everything feels like it could be real.
You know, when you're walking around with a cell phone in your pocket, especially one that's been manufactured in the last 5 years, it becomes really difficult to make excuses on why not shoot a film. Especially with all the apps and the accessories that are available to you now.
The plot regards 3 men who set out to create a fake documentary about a well-known vampire, but the trio stumble across a different legend, that of the Charmin. But really, the plot is secondary to the improvised performances of the actors. Charmin succeeds very much due to the natural charisma of Jeff Kober, Kip Tribble and Nick Greco, who underplay proceedings just enough to make this an entertaining outing with a few chills thrown in. Charmin is an 85-minute feature film shot in 2.5 days, with the filmmakers using an iPad as their A camera and their smartphones as their B cameras. Their longest shooting time in one day was 4 hours.
You know, when it comes to filmmaking with your smartphone, Soderbergh really said it best when he said, shooting with a mobile device allows you the freedom for unprecedented fast-paced filmmaking, and you just point and shoot.
Blue Moon had its world premiere at New Zealand International Film Festival in 2018. The film stars Mark Hadlow and Jed Brophy, who stand off in this trickily plotted thriller about a service station owner who rashly appropriates a stash of stolen drug money. All set in one budget-friendly location, the film cost around $8,000 to shoot.
Cut, please.
Same bucket, take 3.
Action. I knew I was going to make a film in a single location in real time. And so what I mean by that is every minute of film time is a minute of story time. So basically the camera's rolling near enough continuously for 90 minutes and the audience is right in the middle of the action.
The Best Years of a Life, its English title, is a 2019 French drama film directed by Claude Lelouch. It was screened out of competition at the 2019 Cannes Film Festival. The film is a sequel to Lelouch's Un homme et une femme, or however you say that,
Un homme et une femme,
which won 2 Academy Awards over half a century ago. Lelouch decided to shoot with an iPhone, although reports are it was only 30% of the final film. That said, Lelouch says his next feature is 100% iPhone. As there's no adjustable iris on the iPhone, moving between dark interiors to bright exteriors was tricky. Not to be defeated, director of photography Maxime Heureux designed an adjustable filter with a motor and remote control. Now he could darken the filter smoothly as needed. Afghan director Hassan Fazili is forced to flee the country when the Taliban puts a bounty on his head. Filmmaker Hassan Fazili and his family diaried 3 years and hundreds of miles while in exile from Afghanistan after the Taliban had put out a call for his death. The film is a documentary shot on 3 mobile phones that Variety says feels like a modern-day message in a bottle, an urgent appeal for help from a family that's still searching for a home. Alessandro and Pietro are 16 years old and live in Naples. In the summer of 2014, David Bifolco, also 16, was shot by a policeman who mistook him for a fugitive. Alessandro and Pietro are inseparable friends. Alessandro works as a waiter in a bar, while Pietro dreams to become a hairdresser. Alessandro and Pietro accept the director's proposal to shoot themselves with an iPhone, commenting live on their own daily experiences. Their close relationship, their neighborhood, now empty in the middle of summer, and the tragedy that ended David's life. These last 2 films demonstrate the power of putting the camera in the hands of those with previously underrepresented voices. While documentaries are traditionally created by a trained filmmaker observing the lives of others, smartphones allow those others to take control of the camera and film themselves. What we hope for then is a more authentic account, rather than one open to manipulation and distortion. Of course, no form of filmmaking is free of manipulation, but at least those who had previously lacked the education and skills to operate a camera now have a voice. Selfie screened at the Berlinale in 2019. As more and more filmmakers turn to smartphones to shoot their low-budget indie films, here's some of our favorites so far this year. Plus, there's one notable feature which has been a hit at major festivals such as Sundance and Berlinale. This London-set redemption story is brought to life by deconstructing the genre conventions and infusing it with authentic characters. It's classic British cinema, but shot on an iPhone 8 using Moondog Labs' anamorphic adapter. Inspired by do-it-yourself indie legend John Cassavetes, director Anthony Z. James focuses on the complexities of the father-son relationship, toxic masculinity, and burden of responsibility.
Like pretty much, like the first shot is I think we just said, okay, let's have a walk and let's see what we can find. And we just went on and just, revealed this wonderful sunrise. And you just try to be in the moment, even if you're doing like a test or something, you try to be steady and it might be usable. So that ended up being usable, and the scene in the gym, you just try to find like most interesting transitions between scenes there and then, because you don't have time and resources to have you have like a location rec, you figure it out a little bit, but you can't do blockings too long, you can't do rehearsals because that's all time. You can't ask people to spend too much time. Like the scene with the birds, I remember I was just trying the camera out, walking around, and you can't plan when the flock of birds is going to fly like that.
How important was FiLMiC Pro to the sort of cinematography? Were you locking down the exposure and focus and everything?
It was essential, actually. That's probably the most technical aspect of it. But it's easy to use and easy to understand, so it doesn't feel like cumbersome to learn and to adapt. Yeah, my advice would be to lock everything down before you go on this exploration. We set up on a flat profile, a log, maximum quality, and lock down the exposure, absolutely.
Personally, this wasn't just one of the best smartphone films I watched last year, but one of the best films, period. The film is a comedy full of surprises and questions what is real and what is fiction in a world where everyone can now make themselves into a TV show. When we are broadcasting ourselves constantly over social media, is there now any distinction between real life and movies and television? That's what makes Phony so fresh. While our mainstream media continues to produce movies and TV as if we are still living in the 20th century, writer-director David Bush has made an iPhone shot film about people filming themselves on iPhones. This is the reality we shouldn't be able to ignore, but somehow we are. Heated jackets, levitating desk lights, barking wallets, crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter have seeded a virtual revolution in funding the unfundable. But what happens to this $34 billion industry when the wheels fall off? Shot using an iPhone, Lost in the Crowd follows the triumphs and pitfalls of 3 crowdfunded filmmakers seeking the answers from this unregulated space. The film is funny, revealing, and touching too, and is written, directed, and produced by professional smartphone filmmaking advocate Jason Van Genderen. Saudi Runaway is a film shot on 2 smartphones, recently purchased by the company National Geographic Documentary Films. The deal was done at this year's Berlin Film Festival. The subject of the film, Muna, filmed the story herself from April to June 2019 using 2 smartphones, sometimes assisted by director Susanna Regina Moyes. The smartphones were used as mostly hidden cameras. With reports saying the film views as an edge-of-the-seat thriller, it perhaps demonstrates a new way of filmmaking. With smartphones relatively easy for anyone to use, the camera can be placed in the hands of the subject to tell the story their own way. So that's it for this trilogy of videos, all about the best feature films shot on smartphones. If you enjoyed these videos, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.